Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of General Government Joint Subcommittee meeting with the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and the Senate Committee on Finance. My name is Senator Angie Taylor, and I have the privilege of chairing this meeting this morning. So we will start at the top with roll, Madam Secretary, or Mr. Secretary.
Assemblymember Backus. Assemblymember Koenig. Assemblymember O'Neill. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett. Assemblymember Watts. Senator Buck. Senator Scheibel. Assemblymember Anderson. Chair Taylor.
And I am here. I'm present. Thank you very much. Everyone is here. We have a quorum, so we can get down to business. Let's see. This is welcome to anyone who's here in Carson City, and then we have someone on Zoom. It looks like I don't know if we have anybody in Las Vegas, but the meeting is being video conference there in Room 6 at the new State of Nevada hearing rooms, and staff will make sure to monitor when people are there. We'll make sure that we know. Okay, so I want to make sure you know this. At the end of the meeting, we will have public comment. And if you want to call in, we'll take it here in person. We'll take it in Las Vegas, and you can also phone in. So if you would like to phone in and make public comment, at the end of the meeting, the phone number for that is 888-475-4499. And the meeting, excuse me. And then the meeting ID is 5127 and 1144. Okay, and I'll repeat that number again right before we have opening comment. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. Just remind all the subcommittee members and others to turn off the mic when you are not speaking. I said the meeting is going to be teleconference. If you're here presenting, make sure you turn on the mic, speak clearly, and spell your last name, if you would, your first time when you speak, and then every other time, please make sure you identify yourself for the record. If not, we will just do a little reminder and just remind you to identify yourself. We want to make sure we have accurate record. If you would like to make public comment, please make sure you've signed in at the door. Or if you'd like to testify, please make sure you sign in at the door. And if you have a business card, give it to the committee secretary as well, because again, we want to make sure our records are accurate. I think that's all of this. Let's see. Okay. All right, so now we will start with our hearing. We'll ask those who are here from the Department of Business and Industry to please come forward. I believe we have our director here. All right, go ahead and you can get started when you are ready.
Good morning, Chair. Chris Sanchez, S-A-N-C-H-E-Z, Director of Department of Business and Industry. Good to see the committee this morning. Just a couple, brief overview here. We have an overview of the department, and then we'll dive into the enhancements. And then I've got each of the administrators that run the various departments here. And so they'll come up during their portion of the agenda, provide their overview, and then go into their enhancements. And with that, I will kind of just dive right in. So Department of Business and Industry on slide 3. We are 12 divisions, 12 regulatory divisions, 61 boards and commissions and advisory committees, with 37 newly added, with the occupational licensing boards being transferred into business and industry back in 2023 with SB 431. Right now we have about 773 authorized positions at BNI. If we included the boards and commission staff, that would put us over 1,000, as I mentioned, the occupational licensing boards, Title 54 boards. There's another 318 or so staff with those boards. We have offices throughout the state. As many of you are aware, Las Vegas, Reno, Carson City, Elko, and Winnemucca. And it's important, I think, to note that we serve about 1 million Nevadans annually. So just about every household is touched by BNI. We issue about 602,000 licenses and permits. There's a slide 4. You'll hear a lot of the word or the term right sizing throughout my presentation. And I'll dive into that as I go through our enhancements, and so I don't need to spend too much time on this slide. But the idea is I came into the department about a year ago, spent the first 6 to 8 months just really assessing where the department is, kind of looking at it under the lens of an organization of that size and scope in the private sector, as well as in the public sector, and kind of seeing where I thought we needed to bring the department into the modern era. And you'll hear me talk about that as I go through the presentation today. There's slide 5. The best way to think about what we do is the four sections of B&I: commerce and capital regulation, community development, consumer protection and advocacy, and labor and workforce protection. As the committee is aware, this presentation addresses about half of our agencies. We are back on the 19th with the other half of our agencies and boards and commissions. So we'll address some of these buckets here in those 4 quadrants today, but not all of them. Slide 6 is just the overview of our funding sources, and as a higher level snapshot of how the agency's funds are broken down. And just a quick note: 8.3% general fund in FY26 and 5.3% general fund percent in 27, as we are a primarily fee-based agency. General fund breakdown is on slide 7. I know the committee's familiar with this slide as we've kind of gone over it in the pre-hearings in January. And we can unpack this more if there are questions, but this is just a breakdown of those agencies that receive general funds. Slide 8, actually, this is a draft. We have to go in and make some edits to this slide, so if the committee will indulge us, we'll come back with this slide completely baked, if you will, during our next presentation on the 19th. And then we move right into slide 10, which is the director's office. The director's office has several functions. We have the ombudsman for minority affairs. We have the consumer affairs unit. We have centralized administration functions that we're responsible for in the director's office. So we have 1993, when the department was created, there were 12 independent regulatory agencies that were placed under a single department, and the administrative functions of those agencies were absorbed by the department. And the way that we do that is we have what's called a cost allocation to those 12 agencies. We have a fiscal team, a small IT team. You're going to hear me talk more about IT here in the presentation, as well as HR. And so the director's office, we really kind of fulfill that, if you will, back-end support for those 12 regulatory agencies. As we start to unpack the budget, we'll get into more detail around those key functions. So that takes us to our first slide 11, where we can start to dive into the enhancements. And the first one we have is our human resources unit. So business and industry is one of our larger agencies. I think we stack up, to number 5 of the top agencies in terms of size. We are the only one that does not have in-house HR. So as I'd mentioned, we have 773 souls we're responsible for, and another 318 with the boards and commissions being brought over last session, and yet I do not have a single HR staff in-house. And what that means is that we have 3 deputy directors, with the newest being hired, Nikki Haig, for Boards, Commissions, Council, and Standards last February, 2 deputy directors historically, plus the director of the agency. And the way that our agency is funded and the director's office is funded is through, I mentioned, a cost allocation model, as well as through different programmatical funds. So, for instance, our new market tax credits program funds a staff for new market tax credits. That staff cannot be repurposed or reassigned to another task. And so what we end up having, for instance, and I'll unpack that a little bit more when we get into the rest of the budget, but when it comes to HR, this has a real impact for the agency. Our operations manager spends about, our deputy director for operations, Perry Fagan, spends about 50 to 60% of his time on HR. And when you think about an organization of this size and scope with all that we are responsible for, having members of the executive team spending an inordinate amount of time on HR does the agency and the state a disservice. We need to be thinking about strategy. We need to be thinking about assessing our agencies. We need to be thinking about the future of the agency, the level of service that we provide, how we show up every day to serve our communities. And we need to be structured in such a way and have the appropriate staff and skill sets in the organization to make sure that we can do all those things appropriately. So what we are proposing is 6 staff for HR. We arrived at that number by looking what private sector does with HR. So we did an analysis. We found that there's about 80 to 100 staff per one individual HR staff person in the private sector. We carried that methodology over to business and industry. And we currently work with the Department of Human Resources and the Department of Administration, as you know, DHRM. My assessment is that they are also understaffed, and so when they're servicing all the agencies that they service, and then our agency on top of that, we feel that having in-house HR will serve our agency better. The other thing is that I'm going in and doing, as I mentioned, I've been in the agency about a year, and one of the things that I'm going to be doing in this biennium is doing a real deep dive into every single work center, how we operate, looking at where we can be more efficient, looking at how we measure what we do, and making sure that what we measure correlates with our goals and objectives we have as an agency. That sort of analysis has not been done at Business and Industry for a very, very long time. And so we need an HR staff in-house that can help us go through that process. Additionally, I have staff that have been in the agency that haven't had a performance review in over 20 years. Over 20 years. To me, that's unacceptable as a leader running an organization. We've got to make sure that we show up for our staff, that we have clear succession planning, that they receive the training that they deserve and need to succeed and excel in their positions. And we also need to make sure that we are investing in them appropriately. So I view HR with different hats that they wear. One is to serve the organization and the issues that come up, but the other is to be a partner in making sure that we as an employer are showing up every day for our employees the way that they expect us to show up. And so with this new unit, we will be on the path to being able to do that and do it well, much better than currently has been done at department historically. I think from the direction that we got, are we handling questions after each decision unit, or are we moving on to the whole presentation?
We can go, excuse me, we can go by decision unit. Why don't we do that? We'll go by decision unit, and then we'll come back to you and go back.
Okay.
So go to the committee for any questions that you may have. Let's see, we have, excuse me. Okay, that's a good suggestion. We have notes here. We want to make sure we follow you. So why don't we get through the entire presentation
Okay,
first?
great.
And then, so if you have questions, go ahead and just hold them, and then we'll come back and get to you, Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chris Sanchez for the record. So our next one on slide 11 is E226. It's the IT unit. So kind of getting to this idea of right-sizing of the department, one of the things that I noticed in coming into Business and Industry is that currently our IT, what I would call a unit, is spread out across our agencies, with the department having a small staff. And as our agency has grown in size, as our demands on our agency has grown, demands on technology has increased, I feel that we need an enhanced IT department, or unit, not a department, but a unit within the director's office with more staff that can serve all of our agencies. And where this really manifests itself in what we see is, just on some of the more, where the rubber meets the road tasks. So for instance, when you have to change out technology in an organization that has thousands of devices or hundreds of devices, that's an onerous task. And the way that we can solve that is better efficiency, but ultimately we're going to need to grow the staff a little bit. Secondarily, the other challenge that we have is that, interestingly enough, the software that we have acquired for our various entities is comprised of many different contracts that all live in each one of those agencies. And our experience in the last 24 months, 36 months, has been that those individual contractors need a lot of hand-holding to help develop the systems that we need. And that's something that we're not staffed to. So we have IT experts at the director's office, but they are working across 12 different agencies with 12 very unique platforms. Over time, what I'd like to do is consolidate those platforms and get, maybe one contract to serve 2 or 3 different agencies, instead of having each agency on a separate platform, so we can get to better economies of scale and therefore better cost allocate, or better utilization of the funds that we have. So in order to do the analysis that we need done and then serve the organization the way that we need to, we are proposing to enhance our IT unit. That's kind of a two-pronged approach. One is bringing on the new staff, but the other is consolidating those siloed IT folks under the department under one umbrella. Moving on to the third on the slide, enforcement, E227, department requested unit to be, okay, so that one we withdrew. Moving on to E228, which is the public information office and legal. So public information officer, to be blunt, we're built for 1993. I have one PIO that was since 1993, when the internet was new and there was no social media. One person serving an entire agency of our size of, again, almost 1,000 folks, or a little over 1,000 folks, with 61 boards and commissions and 12 regulatory agencies doesn't get the job done. We have a lot that we have to communicate to the public about what we do. And in order for us to do that well, I've got to invest in growing our PIO capability. It's more than just sending out a press release every once in a while. We're expected to be on social media. We're expected to be able to communicate to everybody. As you can imagine, as things, as regulations change, as each industry has different things that are going on that, at the national level, we need to be able to be up front and center and communicating with our constituents that we serve. So we feel this is a modest request, just adding 2 additional folks to support our PIO. And what you will see on the back end of this, once we are able to bring these folks on, if the committee should agree, that we will be able to communicate more strategically and more often with all of our constituents. The other in this line item, E228, is 1 legal researcher. So kind of going back again, not to be repetitive, but it is part of the right-sizing agenda that I have. We have 1 administrative law judge that services all 12 of our agencies. And she is kind of a one-stop law firm. She does a great job. Cara Brown's her name. Many of you may have know her or worked with her in the past. But she has to do all of the work in preparing for her hearings and her cases by herself. And it's a lot of work when you think about 12 different agencies and all the demands and building out getting all the information that she needs and then doing the things that she needs to do to prep. So we'd like to add 1 legal researcher to support her. And that takes us to our fiscal unit, E229. And this adds 1 management analyst, 3 accounting assistants for increased fiscal support to the department. Again, getting back to, as we've done the initial assessment over the last 12 months in each of our centers within the director's office, enhancing the staff, bringing a little additional staff on hand and into the different units so that we can meet the demands that the agency currently faces as we have taken on more responsibility over the years. That takes us to slide 12. And first line on slide 12, and I see that the different units there, and then adjust the funding for the administrative law judge position from general fund. Okay, so we are changing, and James, you may have to chime in on this one, but right now our administrative law judge is funded through the Consumer Affairs Unit. And as I've mentioned, she is also taking on and supporting our other agencies within the Department of Business and Industry. We'd like to remove her from the general fund Consumer Affairs Unit line item and over to our cost allocated department wide director's office allocation. And so that's what's reflected there. Did I get that right, James? Yeah, okay. The next one is E806. We have a request to change 1 administrative assistant position in the Consumer Affairs Unit from part-time to full-time. So this unit is as many of you have probably heard of through other committee hearings, this is our frontline entity, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, for constituents that have issues with folks that may have hired to fulfill a certain task. So whether, maybe they hired someone to fix a fence and the person came out and took the initial deposit and never came back to fix the fence, and ultimately they try to get that remedied, they call business and industry. We have about 4,000 of these inquiries that come in annually, and so our team is working diligently, this small staff that we have, but we definitely have need for that part-time position to become a full-time position to deal with the volume of cases, or I should say inquiries that ultimately turn into cases within that small unit. E903 and E904 are similar in that we are, my understanding is historically coming out of the global financial crisis, both FID and MLD, Mortgage Lending Division and Financial Institutions Division, as the state was making cuts. If you remember, we were laying people off at that time as we were responding to the global financial crisis. There was a decision made to move staff into the director's office in the fiscal department or fiscal unit. And we've been operating that way since then. This goes back, I think, well over 10 years. We are now looking to transfer those folks back to their respective departments. My understanding is that there's not much of a change in the fund allocation for this. No, looks like about a $10,000 difference. So, but that's kind of more housekeeping, if you will, just trying to get that right. Those folks currently support those two agencies in their roles, so they're just going back home. They've been, and they have been for many years, supporting those agencies that fund what they do. And then the last on that page, or slide 12, is our transfers with the 4IT, which I had mentioned earlier. And this is kind of reconciling what I was saying, which is transfers those folks out of the individual agencies into the department, so that we can get to those better efficiencies that we're aiming for in the department.
James Kirkpatrick, Administrative Services Officer for Business and Industry. James, James, Kirkpatrick, Kirkpatrick. I would just like to point out that the E906, 907, 908, 909 that Director Sanchez just presented is directly connected to the E506, 507, 508, and 509 in the same slide. The five E500s are the adjustments to change the funding sources for the transfers of the IT professionals identified in the E900 decision units. And that makes the adjustment away from the funding in their prior agencies and changes it over to the cost allocation method of the department H. Thank you.
Chris Sanchez for the record. Thanks, James. Moving on to slide 13. So E232, Security Services is the header here. So we service, as I mentioned, an interaction with almost 1 million constituents. Our staff, by the way that they adjudicate cases in our various boards and render decisions, sometimes folks don't agree. We have had, unfortunately, direct threats made to the agency and staff. We have had folks show up in our parking lots last year with the intent to do harm. We have had many interactions where we've had to involve our Capitol Police, who've done a tremendous job in investigating those cases and holding people accountable. And security is a major priority of mine in keeping our staff safe. So shortly after coming into the role of director, I reached out to Capitol Police and asked if we could work together to develop a new model for how we keep our buildings safe. And that is reflected here. We are the first agency to do this. What we intend to do is work with Capitol Police, where we will be funding positions that will actually be in our building in 2300 West Sahara in the south, which is currently the U.S. Bank building. And then they will also be paroling down the street at 3300. Just if you're familiar with Southern Nevada on Sahara, the two buildings are on the same street, not far from one another. This will give us an actual presence in our buildings, which will operate as a deterrent, but will also allow for us, when we have those instances, unfortunately, that do occur, to have a police presence immediately, which will keep that chain of custody clear. They will be responding on scene. They will be able to apprehend those individuals and then continue on to do the investigations necessary. And so, again, this is a new framework. We've been working with Capitol Police and the Chief of Police, Chief Litos, very closely, as well as the Department of DPS in developing this. And we think it's a better alternative to what we are currently doing in our buildings with contracts with allied services. Please.
James Kirkpatrick for the record. I would just like to add some comments. The E280, 281, 282, 283 identified in the director's office. You will see similar decision units in the other budgets that we are presenting today. So I just want to make you aware that they are connected. Thank you.
Chris Sanchez for the record. The last item on the slide 13, is constituent outreach and marketing. This is E233 and E239. E233, so I mentioned bringing on the additional staff for the PIO, but one of the other things is that we don't have the ability, for instance, when we go to a job fair, to have any collateral about what business and industry is. So we show up with a table and a table skirt, and that's it, and our folks. We need to be able to produce material about what the department does, who we are. So when we are out publicly facing our constituents through the various events that we attend, the various events that we put on through our different departments, we have the resources to produce the collateral and the information to share with our constituents. The other thing is that I would also like to modernize our website. If you look at the way that our website is structured, my staff tells me it's circa 2000. To me, it looks like it's circa 1995. But the idea is that we have some work to do. So we want to begin that process, and this is a small step in that direction of being able to produce the collateral that we need for our hiring events and for some of the community-wide events that we attend statewide, as well as diving into looking at how we can enhance our online platform. E239, the last one on the page, is the Ombudsman for Consumer Affairs and Minorities, and this is to support outreach at events as well. The individual, Miriam Hinkerman here, that is our ombudsman, is out in the community more so than anybody else in the director's office. She does a great job getting out, but also needs to have collateral and materials that she can have at those events. Moving on to slide 14.
Director, just for a moment.
Oh, sure.
Our slides might be, our handout might be different because we're moving on to slide 13.
Oh, okay.
And I want to
sorry.
make sure that the committee
Oh, we do.
can follow along
Okay.
and that we don't have any confusion.
Okay.
It's okay, we
Thank
can
you.
be off the page, but I just wanted to make sure everyone
Everybody
knew,
was-
so people are looking around like, where is that?
Where are we at?
All right, thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
James Kirkpatrick, for the record. E231 is requesting in-state travel for the Director's Office. This travel includes in-state travel for for the Director to travel between Reno and Carson City.
Chris Sanchez for the record. The other thing I'll mention on this E231 for the Director's Office. So historically, business and industry deputy directors have not traveled. It's important to me that the executive team is able to travel throughout the state, visit our offices, work with our staff directly, and come up here during the session as well as in the interim when we need to. So this increase, this request is not only for the director's travel, but it's for our deputies so that we can ensure that we are in our offices and we are working with our administrators and meeting our staff where they are throughout the state.
James Kirkpatrick, for the record. E235, 240 are related to the Commission on Minority Affairs. This is just accounting for the increases for the biennium in phone lines, emails, marketing, and constant contact, online email services. E236, 237 are also decision units that account for the increased costs related to cellular services and the addition of multiple landlines for the Director's Office. E237 is request, again, additional phone lines for the licensing unit, which exceed the amount of the previous biennium, so we're accounting for those increases in the new biennium. E238 adds expenditures for ongoing LexisNexis subscriptions, which again, increases have been seen projected out for the next biennium. E242 requests and adds expenditure for IT subscriptions, again, exceeding the expectation or exceeding the actual cost from the prior biennium moving forward. E300 requests travel and operating costs for the Deputy Director of the Boards and Office of Boards and Commission and Council Standards. James Kirkpatrick, for the record. Technology investments. Oops, am I there? Yeah. E550 requests and creates a database for the Fiscal Services Unit to monitor workflow, streamline approval processes, and digitally store documents within the system. E551 request funding to create a database for the Consumer Affairs Unit. to oversee the sightseeing tours, discount buying clubs, dance studios, health clubs that have been recently added to their workload.
Chris Sanchez for the record. Just on E551, for clarity, the last session, the Consumer Affairs Unit inherited a number of new industries of which they are supposed to license and track, but they do not have the technology necessary to do that. So we are looking to build out the database and the software to help us fulfill what was added in statute last session. And so those two are related to that. The E551, going back up to the top of the slide, I just wanted to also reiterate kind of where I started earlier about monitoring workflows and streamlining approval processes. And additionally to going into each of the work centers, the other thing that we're going to be doing at Business and Industry is looking at how we operate on the policy side. So as you all know, we have SAM, State Administrative Manual, we have our code, we have statute, but I'm interested also in looking at over time that layer of bureaucracy that's added that in an organization. Excuse me. And we are going to be looking at that and trying to eliminate more the onerous requirements that are sometimes layered on top of the requirements that we have so that we can get to better efficiency. But we need to be able to monitor what we do and have the tools that we need to ensure that we're operating efficiently. So E550 starts us on that path. And yeah, thank you. So turn it back over to you, James, for E710.
The remaining decision units are related to equipment replacement. E710, 711, 712 are basically equipment replacement schedules that is standard for budget builds. And E720 requests additional softwares needed to update servers and associated support functions for the department.
You're pausing and look, Director Sanchez, we're finished with this piece for the director's office. Fantastic. Okay, then we will thank you very much. And then now, excuse me, we do have some questions.
Yes.
Right, we do have some questions from the committee. We're going to start with Assemblyman Watts.
Again, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. I have several questions, so I just want to warn you in advance and ask to try and be as brief as possible in your responses. So starting with the E225, the HR unit, I think you've kind of laid out pretty clearly the need for this new HR unit. Can you just discuss kind of how you arrived at 6 new positions?
Chris Sanchez for the record. Yes, we did an analysis of private sector entities and how many HR. We talked to HR professionals that are just that, HR directors and organizations. The number that consistently came up was between 80 to 100 staff per one individual HR staff person. And that's how we arrived at the number.
Great, thank you for that. And then since DHRM would no longer be providing HR services, do you know why those divisions positions are not recommended to transfer back to BNI? Because basically, so far we don't see anything on the DHRM side of them scaling down as you're scaling up internally, if that makes sense.
Chris Sanchez for the record. I can't speak to DHRM's budget and how they account for that. There is a shift that's occurring. So agencies that are larger in size I'm not unique, are getting HR. Smaller agencies that have had HR will no longer have those HR professionals in-house. So they are making, the governor's office is making changes in the HR unit and in the Department of Administration, and then the agencies are adjusting accordingly.
Thank you, and that just might be something we'll want to follow up on. You talked a lot about modernizing the agency and some of the things that are still stuck in the 90s, and I think as we were looking through, we know that there was also a significant reorganization of business and industry in 2011, and I think one of the things that happened too is there was a move towards centralizing HR and DHRM. There was actually an internal position that got moved over to that agency from BNI. So I think that's what we're trying to figure out is why there's not a position getting kicked back from DHRM over to you guys. So let's see. And then can you just talk a little bit about how the human resource kind of needs have changed in the department, and what areas you're seeing need for additional human resources support?
Chris Sanchez for the record. So there's several areas. I'll start on the positive side. As I'd mentioned earlier in my remarks, and that is building a succession plan across the organization, being more proactive in how we ensure that folks have the training that they need. And if you can imagine, we're 700 employees and now inheriting boards and commissions. We have a lot of work to do in building out those training programs to make sure that people are taking advantage of them. The other thing is making sure that we are developing our folks, which is really important to me. It's more than just accountability. It's making sure that we sit down with each individual person in the agency, understanding what their career objectives are, how that fits into business and industry, how that, maybe it doesn't in the future, which is also okay. But the idea is that, HR is a profession, as all of you know, and those folks are well trained in that profession. They are specialists. We are not specialists. We are folks that are triaging an issue, and that's not fair to the staff. And so what we'd like to do is get those professionals in-house, be able to work with our administrators in the various divisions to make sure that there is accountability, to make sure that we have those the planning in place, to make sure that we are on the annual review schedule. I mentioned earlier that we have folks that have gone 20 years, their entire career in the department without a review. And so we need to do better. And so that's part of that. Now, on the other hand, issues arise. Any large organization, you're going to have a percentage of the organization where things happen. Unfortunately, just like many organizations, there's harassment, there's stuff that comes up. These are complex cases. They take quite a while, sometimes years to solve. They require us to work across the AG's office and other entities. They are very time consuming. They involve sometimes going to court. And that responsibility is shouldered by myself and Perry Fagan, who's come up here, our deputy director, who is managing HR now, because we don't have those folks in-house. And I don't know if, Perry, you have anything you want to add?
Good morning. Perry Fagan for the record, Deputy Director with Business and Industry, Perry Faigin. Thank you, Assemblymember Watts, for the question. This consumes a tremendous amount of time. Anytime someone comes to us with a concern regarding something that's occurred in an office, it could be a potential harassment issue. Any of these kinds of items that are around harassment, equal opportunity, discrimination, sexual harassment, those will always come directly to me. And then I have to turn around and try to make some kind of a determination as to where do we go with this, what do we do with it, how do we handle it. The DAG that we have, our Attorney General that represents us, is part of the DHRM team. They're assigned to us, but they're part of that DHRM piece. And so in having this internalized, then those complaints can turn around and go to the HR unit versus coming directly to us. There's a part about separation that we need to make sure that we have so that when decisions do finally come to us after an investigation, after an EEO complaint is completed, that we're then able to turn around and make a determination on something in a fair manner. And currently, I know way more about some of these types of situations than I probably should. And I try to shield the director from these so that when he does get them, that he is then able to make a fair decision on what to do with a particular employee. So it's important to turn around and bring that unit in-house, and then work with the Attorney General's office in trying to work through all of these different aspects of HR. So it's not just hiring and employment. There's also FMLA, ADA that goes into this that we haven't even touched on, as well as then all of the other particular issues around disciplinary processes and complaints and things like that. So it's a large job, and frankly, I'm not sure that 6 is enough. Sorry, Chris, but it'll get us started.
All right, thank you for that. And then because, Director Sanchez, you brought up boards and commissions, obviously we're not discussing that budget account, and we know that there's a lot to discuss around that, as well as some of the proposed changes in, I believe, Senate Bill 78. So I just wanted to confirm that as far as this item and the other items in the B&I administration, that these are all contemplating the agency as it currently stands today, correct?
Chris Sanchez, for the record, thank you for the question. Yes, exactly. This is as we currently sit. We will need to, after the session, when we see when the dust settles, where we are, we'll come back to this body with additional build out with boards and commissions.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had that clear. Thank you, Chair.
You're very welcome, Assemblyman. Our next question is coming from Assemblymember Anderson. Chair of this committee, right? She's a chair too.
Thank you, Chair, too. Thank you for the presentation today. I'm actually going to move into the IT positions, which I know that you had mentioned, Mr. Kirkpatrick, with one of your comments with that. Can you discuss the current IT personnel supporting the department and how 4 new IT positions would actually benefit department and divisions operations? Yeah, and I might have a follow-up based upon that answer.
James Kirkpatrick, for the record. I'm going to phone a friend.
Perry Fagan, Deputy Director, for the record. Assemblymember Anderson, thank you for the question. I want to make sure I understand the question as well. We currently have, I believe is it 4 positions that we're moving in? Is that what we have over there? Okay. So we have 4 positions that we're moving in. So these positions currently are located and are responsible directly to that particular division. Now we have 12 divisions, okay, and also B&I over the top of that with over 700 some odd employees. We don't just have 700 electronic devices. We don't just have, one piece of software in each agency. We have multiple pieces of software that we're using. We have multiple devices within these agencies that we're using. So in some cases, the problem that we wind up having is that I've got 4 people sitting over here, but I have 100 brand new computers that just came into a particular division or B&I, for instance. Without a consolidated unit, I can't turn around and move and ask. I mean, I can ask them, but they don't have to support me, okay? They don't have to help. So it's one of those things where by bringing everybody together, we can then turn around when we have large capacity, not just deployments that need to be done, but software considerations and things like that, where we have particular individuals that may have an expertise in some area or an expertise in another area, where we can bring them together to turn around and work together as a unit to complete a task and get it done, rather than in, let's say, 6 months to a year to, let's say, get out 100 computers. I might be able to turn around and get that accomplished in a matter of weeks. And so these are the kinds of things that we're looking to do. While it made sense years ago to turn around and work it as it is now, as it is currently, it doesn't make sense moving forward. And we've had numerous conversations with the OCIO as well as other IT departments around, and we see the same thing there, where they have very large departments. We've all talked about the size of ours and the size of our department. And we've all kind of come to the conclusion that, again, the way it's operating currently, it's probably not the ideal situation, and it should be a combined unit so that it can resource the entire department in multiple different ways.
I appreciate that. I'm going to jump in. I know you have a follow-up. Just, we have 7 more budgets to go through today, so if we can ask for the answers to be a little more concise, because we do have several questions here and we have several more budgets. Okay, thank you so much. Assemblymember Anderson?
So thank you. So this has been attempted in the past. How do we know this time it's going to be successful? What's different?
Chris Sanchez for the record, different leadership, to be blunt. And how we look at resource allocation and the task that we have to do. So what Perry described, I think, went into the detail around it, but we need to be able to deploy resources in the organization where they're needed most and do that efficiently, expeditiously, get the job done, and then move on to the next task. Our structure does not allow us to do that currently.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate that. Our next question is coming from Assemblymember Koenig.
So can you briefly discuss the anticipated benefits and the operation efficiencies from centralization of the IT services?
Yes. So as Perry had mentioned, right now we have IT professionals that are spread out across different agencies. Those individual IT professionals are assigned to that agency. So we as a department are not able to task them because they are funded by that agency and the accounts associated with it. And so we may have a need in another agency, but we don't have the appropriate level of staff to address that need, and we are unable to move those individuals throughout the organization where they're needed most to accomplish that task. So we have to then ultimately we build out an implementation schedule that could take longer than it's necessary to do if we were able to move staff and resources around to do it. So
Perry Fagan for the record. The Assemblymember Koenig, the other piece to this is we're looking to break these, put these units to get this unit together and then break them up into a couple of different sections. One that'll handle administration, networking, technical support, and another unit that will handle software, working in the contract area of the software and software development as well. So they're very small right now, but the intent here is to turn around and develop the resources. Right now, our staff can do a lot of different things, kind of like jack of all trades, but master of none. So.
Thank you, Assemblymember. We have another question coming from Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I'm going to shift directions over to some of these new positions into the Director's office. Specifically, I just want to confirm, we'll start with Decision Unit E227. And I saw on the slide that the one new unclassified Deputy Director position was going to be withdrawn. So my quick question for you on that is, do we anticipate a budget amendment to be forthcoming?
Chris Sanchez for the record. Actually, this was a mistake that was made. During the budget process, I had proposed combining the two enforcement divisions with the taxi and the NTA. And as we were in the policy conversations and going back and forth, this position would have been one that would have been responsible for that enforcement unit within the director's office. We ended up pulling that request, but this didn't make it out of the budget. So that's the history there.
Thank you for that. I kind of like where you're going with it. That was very interesting. My next question is regarding the public information officer positions under Decision Unit E228. And I understand from your presentation that this was going to help with communications. And so I was just kind of curious, and I think you did elaborate on it, but what the inefficiencies that the department was experiencing with the communications with just that one public information officer. And my next question would be, is there really a need for two and not just one additional PIO?
Chris Sanchez for the record. Thank you for that question. So current operations right now, we only do what we're able to do with one individual staff person. And so to elaborate a little bit more, as I kind of alluded to in earlier remarks, we have 12 industries. there's a lot going on with each individual industry. Tracking what's happening in the media and those industries and making sure that we get timely information out to our constituents is a job in and of itself. We have the various social media accounts where we push out information about deadlines or hearings that are coming up, or just noticing the general public around 12 different agencies and all the commissions and boards that we're responsible for. That's a lot of work as well. And then the general preparation of those posts, right? So it's not just popping up a post. There's a lot of work that goes into making sure that those, they're written well, and what we're communicating is articulated well, that we've got all the pertinent information. As we've gone through and looked at that.
This is really weird.
Mic just went on.
What people don't, my mic keeps blinking on and off, and I keep cutting it off. I don't know why. Sorry. Okay.
Chris Sanchez for the record. So we've determined that 2 FTEs would meet currently where we are.
Thank you for that, Director. You answered. I'll go to my next question. And this goes to the new legal research assistant for the ALR judge. My question on that is, and I didn't realize because in my brain I'm trying to see how this all works, is you have the Attorney General's office that's providing you all services, and so you get a share allocation. And so with that, even though to me a legal assistant to an ALR judge would be a little different, I assume the ALR judge now leans in on the Attorney General's office, which I wasn't aware that kind of happened, but I guess it does. So if that's the case, can you discuss how the addition of this new legal research assistant position to assist the administrative law judge would impact the department's reliance on the legal services provided by the Attorney General's office?
Chris Sanchez for the record. So our ALJ works very closely with the AG's office, but she's also responsible for adjudicating cases and scheduling hearings and presiding over those hearings. And so what that means is she has to prepare all the legal briefs, she has to prepare the opinions, she has to do all the legal research, and she's one individual over supporting 12 different agencies. So by adding an additional staff person there, she will have support. Think of it as a paralegal that will be able to do the case law history, look at the individual case, do additional research when necessary, and then prep the documents and then ultimately the opinions that are rendered based on the decisions.
Thank you. And Chair, if I may just make one comment, I just want to let you guys know, I know you're looking to upgrade your website, but your website is one of my favorite websites, so hopefully you can keep it still as user-friendly as it is.
So noted, Assembly Member, so noted. All right, we do have a question coming from Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much. Oh, no. Okay, mine is working. So I wanted to go to Decision Unit E229 on the new positions in the fiscal unit. And my first question is if you could discuss how the department determined the need for these 3 new accounting assistants and the positions that each one would assist with.
Emily Servey, for the record, CERVI, ASO for the Department of Business and Industry.
Can you get a little closer to the mic, please? Thank you so much. Ooh, it's on.
There has been, since 2014, a 14% increase in the accounts payable that the accounting staff process in our office. This equates to approximately 2 positions for our accounts payable team. In addition to that, our accounts receivable staff have had an increase in their workload since COVID, 2020, when we had to switch many of our accounts receivable accounts to online or digital processes. This has created multiple accounts that we now have to consistently monitor and reconcile. And we have also had increases to our debt collections from our centralized processes, other agencies that we have all centralized through us for collecting that debt and monitor, tracking, trying to collect on that debt. That has continually increased over the years.
Okay, thank you. And I think you kind of started to touch on this, but could you just kind of elaborate on the challenges that the department's experienced in managing the contracts workload across the various divisions?
Emily Servey for the record. Sorry. The amount of contracts that we have had to hold throughout our agencies has increased, partly due to changes in SAM regulations, State Administrative Manual. Additionally, over the years, we have lost several statewide contracts for many of the vendors that we had previously used where we didn't have to have contracts, and now we do. I think about 4, maybe 5 years ago, we started having to create contracts for many of our software process or programs that we use for our agencies, and that has caused additional contracts. And the volume of these contracts has increased exponentially, and we need a centralized position to assist our divisions with monitoring when those are renewed, getting that paperwork going, and working with purchasing to ensure those contracts stay in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We have a question from Assemblymember O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the time. Director, speaking on enhancements 232, 280, 281, 282, 283, 284, 285, very quickly. In other words, security and your needs there. Can you talk to me a little bit about, and I appreciate your concerns of your Las Vegas office's security needs, but has the general public expressed any concerns when they've come into the building to you or to any of staff?
Chris Sanchez for the record. No, we've not had any complaints from the general public that I'm aware of threats to their safety.
And if I may, Chair, second one, I know I understand, or at least I'd like to think I understand from my time in law enforcement, the difference between your private security agency and what you're requesting to have Capitol Police. But could you just, for those that may not be aware of the differences between the challenges of security services that you're currently receiving from Allied, how they would differ from the security services you would receive from Capitol Police?
Chris Sanchez for the record. So our Capitol Police are Category 1 police officers, and they have all the ability to carry out and enforce the laws of the state, where our security officers through Allied do not. They have to call a local law enforcement agency when something happens. And so by having those folks, sorry, our lights are flashing up here.
I know it's like whack-a-mole up here. You guys have no idea how much IT is aware of it, and they are working on it. So we'll all just play whack-a-mole until.
So for me, the way I look at this is having folks that can respond in real time, that are trained and ready and up for the task, and then are able to, if they need to, arrest an individual, that can perform that arrest and remove and mitigate the threat in the time that it's happening. I don't have that level of confidence with Allied or third-party folks that are not appropriately trained to do that. And because of the size and the interactions that we have. So one thing, and I know we're on time, we'll be very fast, but we adjudicate a lot of cases. Unfortunately, for a lot of what we do as a regulatory agency, folks lose their licensing. They lose their livelihood. It's an unfortunate part of what we do as a regulator, and that is emotionally charged at times. And so there are folks that they come into our work centers and unfortunately have that outcome. The other thing is that we have constituents, at least the few that have escalated over the last year, they were just upset that they weren't being heard. And in one case, it started at a local office and then to our office, in which we were the last agency that person showed up to. And by the time they got to us, they were angry and ready to, in their words, to take out that frustration on our staff.
Can I ask just very quick?
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair. When you're having an issue and you're calling law enforcement, are you calling Capitol Police or are you calling Las Vegas Metro?
Chris Sanchez for the record. We do both. Capitol Police is responsible for all state assets, all state buildings, state employees. So we call local law enforcement and Capitol Police.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Chair, for the time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Our next question is coming from Senator Buck.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. The governor's recommendation includes the implementation of this new database, which is on-base platform, and I just wondered what the anticipated benefits of implementing the new on-base platform database, and would this new database eliminate the current challenges in processing documents in the fiscal services unit?
Emily Survey for the record. The new database is needed to streamline a very clunky process that we have right now, since we have tried to go digital with our documents, and right now we have an inefficient means of storing documents, and we have no way to monitor workflow. I mentioned that we had a 14% increase in our accounts payable, but we have not had an increase in staff. We need a way to be able to better monitor those workflows. We have the division administrators that we consistently need to have signing papers, and this database would assist us with keeping track of where those things are at in the process. It will help streamline things and make our office more efficient. It will not eliminate the need for more positions to do the workload, but it will help us better track and make things more efficient and give us a way to store the documents that we have digitally to allow us to better perform audits and our grant reconciliations.
We're trying to get the microphones situated. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that question. Our next question is coming from Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. My question is regarding item E551. I was hoping that your department would be able to explain why you did not submit a technology investment notification to the Office of the CIO related to the new database for the Consumer Affairs Unit.
Emily Survey for the record. The technology investment notification was not submitted because this was a last-minute request by the agency. It was submitted afterwards, and it is in the system now.
Thank you very much. We have Madam Chair sitting next to me. Wants to go back a little bit. She has a question. Go ahead, Chair Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. So this, I believe this is where basically slide 14, when you guys use slide 14, this is kind of where it would fit into. And in slide 14, you use the phrase monitoring of workers, of what work. It's not necessarily related to the budget itself, but it is related to the ideas behind what you monitoring. Is that based upon the quality of work? Is that based upon the speed of work? Is that going back to those evaluations that have not taken place for 20 years? And kind of the little union person in me came out, and is that also going to be open to a collective bargaining agreement where there's discussion about how it will be used when you use the phrase monitoring?
Emily Survey for the record. In this decision unit, the reference to monitoring workflows is for our supervisors to monitor the tasks and documents that they are assigning to their staff to make sure that we have equitable work distributed among them and to ensure that somebody is not overloaded and that things are moving along the pipeline so that we can get things paid on time.
Thank you so much for that clarification, because sometimes there are certain words that just go, wait, what? Is Big Brother watching? Because they're definitely playing with the microphones. All right. So we'll move into a different area then of basically the allocations of the methodology now, because you're trying to change that, sounds like. Why did the department change the cost allocation from the hybrid method of FTE count, financial document count, to a single financial document count methodology? Because that does make a difference, that methodology, and why did you make that decision?
Emily Survey for the record. The history of the cost allocation is when we consolidated in 2012, it was based off of an FTE count by the divisions. A few years later, it switched to a document count based on the departments, or the director's office FTE count, and the costs were divided that way. We have found that it is an inefficient and inequitable method to charge our agencies based on a document count, because the size of an agency and the documents that we're processing is not necessarily indicative of all of the services that we are offering to them, or not, as the case may be. For example, some of our smaller agencies, Employee Management Relations Board, have a disproportionate amount that they owe to the cost allocation based on a document methodology, when in reality they receive very limited services from the director because they have 3 employees, compared to Industrial Relations, which has well over 100.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that kind of answers the other thing, which is that idea of, does this really accurately capture what is happening? So just out of curiosity, do you have a comparison of the two that can be provided to our staff? I don't think we need that today, but it'd be nice to have a comparison of the 2 different ways.
Emily Survey for the record. Yes, I have that and can send it to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
And thank you for that. If you'll get that to the committee secretaries, they'll get them to us. Okay, that ends, this is a great time because that ends this budget. Thank you so much. We need to take a brief recess so they can fix the system, the mic. So we'll be about 10 minutes or so. We'll be in recess, and I'll let you know when we're back in. Thanks, everybody. Yes.
Got some issues I gotta go.
That's crazy. Oh, but here comes Gib.
Just so you're aware. 10 minutes should. I guess
I was whispering. It's like the one government side I love.
Yep. And we, same thing, I think it's the first week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You came back? Yeah. Pass down. Until we get the mics.
That's good to know, thank you. You don't want to keep it.
Oh, lovely, except for,
Yeah.
know how to press a button. Challenge accepted. Let's do this.
As the mics went across the dais, yeah, because a mic would go on. Funny. Madison is on. Yeah.
And then I feel. Okay, we're going to give it another shot here, and hopefully we can get through at least some of these budgets. We're going to be on budget 3823. Please come forward. And I'll just remind everyone that this is a finance committee. We want to stay on that issue, not the policy, because we want to get through as much as we can. So clear, concise answers will be really appreciated. Thank you so much. Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sharath Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. That's CHANDRA. Be brief. I know, just give a quick overview of the division. So the Real Estate Division, the budget account that we're talking about, I'm going to be kind of specific to that account. So the division is responsible for over 42,000 licensees. That's about 30 unique license and certificates that the licensing agency issues. Real estate appraisal, inspectors of structures, timeshares, builders, they all come under that. We are broadly classified into 4 sections. We've got licensing, we've got enforcement, we've got education, and we've got administration. That composes the majority of the units within the 3823. We also have a 5-member real estate commission that does regulations and oversees, advises the division on policies. So, as the director indicated earlier in his slides, there are some agencies that are general funded, and we're one of those agencies that are general funded. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that. So the division has not, so the division currently has less staff than we had in 2021. So essentially, I know the director talked about the big financial crisis that happened. So we have really not received any enhancements since that point as far as staffing. So if you look at the slide up there, you see the real estate compliance, and we've got some numbers up there. 1,300 complaints received, 478 cases opened, 66 commission hearings, and over 6,000 telephone inquiries. That's just the real estate compliance section. And that's the volume of what we're talking about, but we're talking about the same volume in licensing, we're talking about the same volume in education. And so for us to be able to provide those services, I believe, currently the work has only increased, and kind of there's a misalignment between the work that we do, the services that we provide, and kind of where we are as budget-wise. So that's just the general overview of the division, and then we'll jump right into those budget enhancements or lack of budget enhancements. So essentially, 3823, we're talking about E228. This is just to add some travel for the annual Association of Real Estate Law Officers. They have an annual convention where there's a lot of great information that's shared. We try to send a staff, preferably an administrator or a deputy administrator, to this. And then the rest of them are just, go ahead, James, if you want to. Thank you.
James Kirkpatrick for the record. E280 is related to the same conversation we had for the last budget account. This is related to bringing in the Capitol Police and transitioning out allied services. E801 is the adjustment to the cost allocation, again, based on the prior conversation we had today, related to the methodology change of cost allocation for the department transfers. E900, E500 that were requested in the budget, the division is going to be making a request to have this withdrawn, and we will be submitting a budget amendment to do that.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation. Are there any questions from the committee? Did they send the amendment? Okay. All right, I wanted to make sure that you sent a budget amendment in for the transfer, and you just talked about that. That was my question. Let's see, is there anybody else on the committee? Assembly Member Backus?
Thank you so much, Chair. And I wasn't sure, Mr. Fitzpatrick, if you were going to go into it, but I can just ask our question regarding budget account. Or do we need to close it first? Oh, never mind. I have a question on budget account 216-3827. I saw it on your slide, but I know you didn't talk about it if you were going to wait till we go into that account specifically. Okay, I can wait.
Okay, seeing none, we will go on. We'll close that and go on to budget account 3827.
Sharat Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. This is the education recovery account. So essentially, the way it's structured is there are two accounts, 3827 and 3826. So the 3827 account is just like a holding account, and I think statutorily we're required to keep 300,000 in there for education recovery. So if there are any claims against a licensee, that gets paid out of there. And anything outside of that amount is swept into 3826. Essentially, that is used to provide educational resources for all the licensees, and that's the structure. And so the only, I believe, to just make it very simplistic, we're just merging those two accounts because there's no need for a second account to just manually transfer these. Everything can be accomplished in that one account, so you can have two reserve lines, that kind of stuff. So just, I think it's more of an administrative process than anything else. And James can speak to the details if anyone else has any questions, but that's just generally the way it works.
Mr. Kirkpatrick, did you have something you wanted to? No, okay. Okay, looking for questions, we do. Now we will go to Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to dive in a little more on this. One, I just kind of was curious, has there been any issues, challenges with administering the two accounts? And kind of want to know what those may have been. And then my other question would be, what would be the benefits if you just have the one consolidated account?
Sharat Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. I'll let James answer that first part, and then I'll come back and address the second part.
I apologize. James Kirkpatrick, for the record, could you restate the first part of your question?
Absolutely. So I was just kind of curious with the two different accounts, with maintaining the account for any claims that may be made against licenses with that 300,000, and then doing the rollover to the education. I may have that backwards. The rollover of excess funds. What are the challenges right now with having to administer the two different accounts?
James Kirkpatrick, for the record. The challenges are just the workload perspective. You've got multiple accounts. You're doubling down on the business processes from a centralized fiscal perspective. And by having one budget account, we can consolidate that and keep everything within that one budget account and manage the ins and outs and the daily processes.
Sharat Chandra, Administrator for the Real Estate Division. From our perspective, it doesn't really make any difference. We're still following the way we administer those accounts. So from just an administrative perspective, from the division's perspective, it just makes it a little easier. However, it's not absolutely necessary.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to Taxi Cab Authority, account 2454130. Please come forward. Welcome. Please go ahead and start when you're ready.
Good morning. For the record, Todd Park. I'm the administrator for the Taxi Cab Authority. Currently, the statute allows for us to regulate taxi cabs in counties of 700,000 or more, which is...
I'm sorry, we can't, is your mic on?
It is.
Okay, just pull the mic down a little further. We can hear you a little better.
Okay, how's
Thank
that?
you, that's much better. Thank you so much.
Now I can hear myself. It scares me. Again, Todd Park for the record, TODD-PARK, Taxi Cab Authority Administrator. Currently, Clark County is the only county with over 700,000 people, so we get to regulate the taxi cabs in Clark County. we try to take care of the safety, welfare, and convenience of the taxi riding public. Currently, we are driver permitting about 4,500 drivers a year. There's over 11,000 vehicle inspections that we do a year, and our enforcement staff issues around 6,700 either citations or warnings throughout the year. All of that is really for us to try to keep the riding public safe. That's the main goal of our agency. Some of the challenges that we've been facing is there were two big events when Uber and Lyft came into Nevada that cut our rides about in half, and that was about 2017. We just kind of started to recover from that, and then COVID hit in 2020, and that just decimated Clark County, as you know. We're almost back to pre-pandemic ridership again, but not quite. Our rides have flattened with the advent of autonomous vehicles and other possible ride-sharing services. Our ridership is, like I said, pretty flat now. So being a self-funded agency, that has a direct relation to what our budget is. So moving on to our enhancements. E225, this is for psychological testing for an enforcement officer, 1 per year. Right now, I'm fully staffed, with the exception of 1 supervisor position in this area. But if we do fill this other position, we will need to do the psychological testing, and that's what that money's for. E226, we're going to request to withdraw this. This was for fingerprinting services that I wanted to bring back in-house. E680, that eliminates 2 compliance enforcement investigator positions, and that really goes back to our ridership being flat, our revenues going down. E710, that replaces the computer hardware and associated software for our office. It's just on a replacement schedule, and that's what that money is for. E711, currently the collective bargaining agreement requires us to provide a weapon for our enforcement officers. The weapons that we have are over 20 years old. They are really not conducive to the type of work we do now, because we do enforcement services, patrol functions, answering calls, but we also do undercover work. And the weapons that we have, none of the enforcement people want to carry them. And so we want to purchase weapons that are more for the officers to be able to carry the weapon, to be able to conceal it, as well as use it when they're in uniform as well. And then the last one, E801, this is for the adjustments to the department cost allocations for administrative, fiscal, and payroll, and information technology services. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm making sure I'm following along. And we're going to go to our questions. Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to see you again. My first questions are in regards to the position eliminations. How would the elimination of the 2 vacant compliance enforcement investigator positions affect the agency's ability to carry out its regulatory duties? And how would the elimination of these positions reduce the agency's enforcement efforts?
Again, Todd Park for the record. Thank you for the question. Nobody ever wants to lose the positions. Obviously, you can't do as much as you would with the other 2 positions, but we have been in this position for some time. After COVID hit, the positions the allocations were lost, and in the last interim finance committee, I was given 4 new positions. I was able to fill 2 of them. The 2 positions, thankfully, are not filled at this point, so I don't lose people. Which is really important to me. But we can still sustain. We can still do the job that the public needs us to do to keep them safe. We've done it in the past, we'll continue to do it, and I hope things get better and we can get those positions back.
Thank you. Kind of switching gears just a little bit, given the updated trip projections provided by the agency, what further budget reductions are going to be necessary for this biennium?
Right now, I'm working with the industry to try to take care of the financial situation, and hopefully we'll have a proposal to you this legislative session. Because of that, I'm trying to go out 2 bienniums to stabilize the agency and the financial situations, and hopefully at that point, maybe other options with the merger or something like that might take place.
Thank you. Do you have any further information about the merger or any other like reductions and like kind of an ETA of what that would look like for us?
I don't plan on any other reductions at this point.
Chris Sanchez for the record. The merger that the administrators are referencing is the merging of Taxi and the Nevada Transportation Authority. This is something that I know has come up probably for the last 20 years. But as the administrator has mentioned, we do see at the end of fiscal year 27, the department basically not bringing in enough revenue to cover its expenses. We're at a point where I think we have to seriously consider a merger. It's something that we are starting to really look at in earnest, and we will have more information that we will prepare during this the interim coming back into the next session. I'd mentioned earlier that, just for full transparency, we were looking at merging the 2 enforcement divisions and decided that we would just revisit this in the interim after this session. So stay tuned, there'll be more to come.
Thank you. And one final question. What strategies will the authority be using this biennium to ensure a positive operating reserve?
Todd Park for the record. Again, I'm working with the industry to try to get a proposal to you guys this legislative session to try to take care of that for the next 2 bienniums.
Thank you, Assemblymember. We have a question from Assemblymember Watts.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I appreciate your candor on some of these challenges. We know that the agency has struggled quite a bit, particularly since the adoption of TNCs in the state and the impact that that's had. And as the director noted, there's been conversations about the 2 NTAs for quite some time. So look forward to that. I would just say I understand that some of those conversations are bigger and will take a little bit longer. But we definitely need to figure out how to make sure that we get the agency through this biennium. So please, we would definitely prefer that we have a plan that we can see and act on while we're in session. So that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to ask is that we get that information so that we can act on it while we're in session.
Todd Park for the record. Of course, and thank you for the comments. I'm glad that I'm not in this pain by myself. We're definitely going to try to get you a proposal this session.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Chair Anderson?
Thank you. So your account also helps out another account. I believe it's the Aging and Disability Services. Aging and Disability Service Division. What happens if the money's not there to be able to transfer to it? Is there a plan in place, or has there been discussions taking place?
Todd Park for the record. Thank you for that question. That program is the Taxi Assistance Program. We call it the TAP program. It's a very vital program for our aging and disability people that use our services. I would never want to see that go away. By statute, we have to have a certain amount of money in our budget to be able to fund that, and we have made that. And so I just want to make that clear that that's a very high priority for me, and we've made it, and I'm happy that we've made it.
Follow up, if I may? Just to make sure, that is for both years of the biennium? And is that part of the long plan as well, to continue to help with that?
It is for both years, and yes, that is a long-term plan.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Chair Anderson. We have a question from Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I just wanted to circle back to the withdrawal of the E226 reinstatement of the fingerprinting services fee, as this would have provided, kind of fill back in those reserves. Now it's going to not fill back in some of those reserves. I guess my question for you is, will we have an amendment to the budget forthcoming on that issue?
James Kirkpatrick, for the record, yes, we will be submitting a budget amendment for that.
Okay, thank you all. Seeing no other questions on this budget. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. We're going to go on to the next budget. The Nevada Transportation Authority, 101-3922. Please come forward. And gentlemen, begin when you are ready. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairs. Forgive me. Vaughn Hartung for the record, VAUGHNHARTUNG. I'm the chairman and the division administrator for the Nevada Transportation Authority. I know some of you have already seen some of this, but we'll just quickly go over this. And by the way, with me is my Deputy Commissioner David Pasternak, and he'll be answering some questions on the budget itself. The Nevada Transportation Authority's primary objective is for the safety of the traveling public through fair and impartial regulation of intra-state travel. We are an enforcement agency through 289-320, only a Cat 2 agency. Our statutory authority is granted through NRS 706, 706A, 706B, and NRS 712. 706 is the general statute that we would use for general transportation, and I'll get into those things in just a second. 706A is the TNC chapter, 706B is autonomous, and then 712 is moving and storage. So what we regulate is charter bus, shuttle buses, limousines, moving and storage, tow cars, non-emergency medical transportation, transportation network companies, or TNC, autonomous vehicles, taxi cabs outside of Clark County, and then we also permit employer van pools, airport transfer services, and warehouse permits. The NTA's primary office is located in Las Vegas with 38 FTEs. Our Northern Nevada office is located in Reno with 8 FTEs, 46 total with 5 vacancies. Our key functions are listed on the slide under the current activities. That said, I would like to take a moment to review several key challenges that the NTA is currently facing. And so if you look at that slide, you can see that our challenges are outdated and inadequate technology. We are living on a database that was created, it was probably created in the 1990s. It is probably the base, and some of you are going to think that this is a hyperbolic statement. The base is truly DOS. It may be Windows 3. It certainly doesn't even rise to the level of Windows 95. And I can give you an example in just a minute, and I don't want to take a whole lot of time of a query that I had my staff run when I first came on. But one of our other challenges is inadequate staffing to address rising incidents of illegal transportation. As all of you are aware, it's difficult to get enforcement officers to come into a division like the NTA because we compete with every enforcement agency within the state. And so it's hard for me to compete whether it's in Washoe County or Northern Nevada or Clark County in Southern Nevada with the municipal police services. And then of course, we have a significant regulatory gap in the rural areas. That lack of enforcement and safety inspections put the rural Nevadans at risk. At some point, and it's not going to be in this legislative session, I would like to come back to you and I would like to ask for an additional field office in Elko. It's definitely needed. Elko is growing. The eastern side of the state is growing. Not going to happen in this session. So, Madam Chair, please don't. I see the look, Madam Chair, and we understand the issues, especially in the rurals. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, my Deputy Commissioner, David Pasternak, to go through the next slide.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Thank you, Chair Hartung. My name is David Pasternak, Pasternak. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Nevada Transportation Authority. I'll be discussing the enhancements for Budget 101-3922. E225. This is a request for increased travel to northeastern Nevada. The NTA, as Chair Hartung had mentioned, we do not have an office in northeastern Nevada. This request will fund for travel for an enforcement team that will go there every 60 days, basically to the Elko office to perform inspections for compliance and ensure we have enforcement by reducing illegal transportation. E227 requests added expenditures for travel and registration. This funding would be allowing the NTA to have our management and the chair travel back and forth between Las Vegas and Reno. In addition, it will allow for our management to attend conferences, such as the International Association of Transportation Regulators, to keep abreast of issues within the transportation industry. E236 adds expenditures for data storage. This is a modest increase for data storage required to operate our NTA website. E237 requests funding for the consolidation of the division's enforcement databases. In years 2024 and 2025, we have had approved work programs provided for the modernization of the agency's driver database which will be accomplished in 2025. Based on the current budget numbers under E237, if approved, after fixed expenses for existing platform is covered at a cost of $118,650 per year, we are estimating that we would have $45,740 in FY 2026 and $53,626 in FY 2027 to look at completing the technology infrastructure in phases by migrating onto the Acela platform for both the NTA's enforcement and carrier database. This would also be the same platform that Taxi Cab Authority is on, thus meeting the goals of business and industry to utilize the same technology across agencies. Mr. Kirkpatrick, could you just review A280 and 281?
James Kirkpatrick for the record. E280 and 281, again, are related to the Capitol Police transition and allied phase-out, as previously discussed in our presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Dave Pasternak for the record. E710, this requests replacement of our computer hardware and associated software based on the OCIO's replacement schedule. E719 requests replacing one fleet service vehicle. This vehicle will be used by the NTA's TNC staff in carrying out enforcement duties. This request replaces a previously assigned vehicle which was taken out of service after a collision on October 12th of 2022. E800 requests fund adjustments to the Department of Public Safety's cost allocation for dispatch services, which are used by the NTA's enforcement team. E801 requests enhancement adjustments for services that are provided by business and industry to the NTA. E907 requests the transfer of one IT professional position from the Nevada Transportation Authority's budget account number 3922 to Business and Industries Administration budget account number 4681 to centralized department IT staff. That concludes our enhancements. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pasternak. We do have a couple of questions. We're going to go to Assemblymember O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, excuse me. I want to talk about, I guess it's E236 and 237, your merging of some databases. And what led your agency to decide or determine that to no longer utilize the Office of the Chief Information Officer to develop and implement the driver permit database?
Assemblymember O'Neill. We chose not to move forward with the OCIO plan as we look to enhance our technology with the platform that is used by the Taxi Cab Authority. This would allow, if there is a merger in the future, an ease of transition between the two agencies' softwares, because right now we have a security wall up between the Taxi Cab Authority as well as the NTA. If we would decide to merge, that wall can be taken down and the information can be merged easily.
If I may follow up,
And Mr. Pasternak, don't forget to say your name when
I'm
you
sorry.
speak. Oh, it's okay.
My apologies.
and I'll help Mr. Pasternak. So we're not going to merge the two groups,
Not,
but is their database current and up to current technology and needs? Will it meet your specifications and your requirements?
So I'll answer that if you don't mind, Madam Chair. For Assemblymember O'Neill, through the chair. The
Name,
issue-
please, sir. Name for the record.
Oh, Von Hartung for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. I forget who I am occasionally. Thank you. The issue really was again the outdated database that we were dealing with. We were using a proprietary piece of software that only a couple of other agencies throughout the state were using. The merger with the taxi authority moved us over to Acela, and Acela is a common software within governmental agencies, and in fact, when I was at Washoe County, we used Acela for a lot of our applications process. So it's one that we feel will serve the needs, and I believe that the eventual goal will be that all of BNI will have a similar look and feel regardless of where you're making an application. The questions might be slightly different, but the base data will be the same and the look and feel will be the same.
Thank you. And if I may, I like the idea of an ELCO office and supporting it because it has grown, but future bienniums. So what is the plan for the agency to consolidate the carriers and enforcement functions into the Acela system in the future biennial?
Well, for the record, Von Hartung, Assemblymember O'Neill, to combine the two will first give us the ability to cross-reference data. We have a lot of taxi members that are potentially Uber and Lyft drivers or limousine drivers. Taxi is also looking at, and we're looking at a pilot program right now to utilize a third-party piece of software where they can become a TNC. That said, when the two agencies merge, the data would then just become one single database.
If the two agencies merge. But there will be no conflict in utilizing both agencies having access to the database, because you said right now that it's firewalled off
Correct.
between the two. So, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but remember, Von Hartung for the record, remember, Assemblymember O'Neill, we handle taxi outside of Clark County, so we're already doing some of that. We already deal with taxi meters and driver logs and all of those things. So there is an economy of scale. The real issue in the past has been that they're privately funded. They're funded through their carriers, and we're not. We're funded through fees, fines, and some highway funds.
I appreciate that. And as the old saying goes, Mr. Hartung, you had me on economy of scale. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
You're welcome, Assemblymember. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so
Madam
much.
Chair.
We appreciate it. We'll go on to, we have about 25 minutes, and I think we can make it. We're going to Budget Account 101-3900, the Labor Commissioner. All right, welcome. And please begin when you are ready.
Good morning, Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner for the record. The Office of the Labor Commissioner is one of the general funded agencies in the Department of Business and Industry. We handle all of the private employment regulation and compliance duties that are not otherwise designated elsewhere. So that ends up being wage and hour, general complaints, licensing private employment agencies and professional employer organizations, regulating the employment of minors. And then we are also the we are the agency tasked with performing compliance on public works projects, which means maintaining, issuing public works projects numbers and their database for the status of those projects, including everything that goes with that, like contractor lists, size of the project value, that kind of stuff. And then we do compliance on those public works projects in the areas of prevailing wage, certified payroll reporting, and Apprenticeship Utilization Act. And then we also survey and set the prevailing wage every other year in odd years. I think that pretty much covers a summary of our duties. So what we're looking for in our budget is we are currently requesting 5 additional positions. 4 of them would be designated as a Public Works Division team. So public works compliance, prevailing wage compliance, ever since I got here in September of 2022, and from what I understand historically, has sort of been handled on a triage basis. So we have so many general complaints and wage and hour complaints that fall under NRS 608. All of our investigators they carry about caseloads of 100 at any given time. They get about, right now, 113-ish new claims every month. So it's very high volume. Because of that, myself, the chief investigator, and the deputy labor commissioner are all handling the public works compliance on a triage basis. So we are very fortunate. Last year, I was able to poach Carson City's public works compliance person and bring her into my office as the chief investigator. She's done an amazing job setting up a system and developing all of the guides and training manuals that we would need in order to really implement a process to the public works compliance, more similar to what we have for the wage and hour NRS 608, 609, 613 stuff, because that is so regulated and regimented. The additional position would be an administrative assistant for our state apprenticeship director. The Nevada State Apprenticeship Council was transferred back to the Office of the Labor Commissioner, I believe after the 2019 session. So we have since grown apprenticeship significantly in the state. We have, since she started, the number of apprentices has increased by over 1,000. The number of programs has increased. The number of occupations has increased. There's a lot of administrative tasks that come with that. And so it would really support her ability to continue to grow apprenticeship in the state if we can give some of those more administrative tasks to an administrative assistant. Other enhancements are some membership dues for a national government labor organization and the conference registration that goes with that. I am a member of one organization right now. It is extremely beneficial. We meet quarterly, virtually, in order to talk about common issues and share strategies. This is the other national organization that we could really benefit in Nevada from learning from other states from. The remaining enhancements, I will have Mr. Kirkpatrick explain, as they are, I think, more department-based enhancements.
James Kirkpatrick for the record. I believe we're leaving off on E280. Yep. E8, 280, 281, 282. These are the adjustments for the phase out of allied securities based on the prior discussion about bringing Capitol Police on during the presentation of budget account 4681. E710 are the standard equipment requests based on the OCIO equipment schedules that are attached to the budget. And E801, again, as previously discussed, are the adjustments related to the department cost allocation methodology changes.
All right, thank you so much for the presentation. We do have a couple of questions, and I will start with Senator Scheibel.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to get back up to speed really quick. Sorry. So can you just discuss in a little bit more detail the current challenges with managing the public works compliance?
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Thank you, Senator Scheibel, for the question. Yes, I can. So public works compliance claims are much more audit intensive than a regular wage and hour claim because you're dealing with certified payroll reporting, which can be extensive. Public works projects can last months, years even, and have a significant number of not only employees but employers. And so it's just a lot more audit heavy. Additionally, the rules regarding wages when we're talking about prevailing wage are different than your wages out of NRS 608. And it actually ends up making it more difficult to assess what wage is actually the appropriate ones, because while we publish the prevailing wage, if the prevailing wage prevails from a collective bargaining agreement, there are nuances to that prevailing wage that then must be considered, calculated, analyzed. And so the time cost of a public works project compliance, prevailing wage or apprenticeship utilization is just a lot more time intensive.
Okay, thank you. And if I understand correctly, this includes a phased implementation of the Public Works compliance team. And so can you address how that would effectively work for the 25 through 27 biennium?
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Yes, so the enhancements are proposed as adding 2 positions in the first year of the biennium and 2 in the second year of the biennium. So we actually, one that was discussed with GFO and agreed to in terms of phasing in the enhancements. What I think might also support a phased approach is we were fortunate enough to get 4 positions out of Senate Bill 82 last year. Now, we did not get the funds for those positions until July 1 of 2024, but hiring does take a significant amount of time. We have successfully hired 3 out of 4 of those positions. The one remaining, I think it actually speaks more to the difficulty of the category of the position hiring than actually finding candidates or available persons. But I think, the reality of hiring has been much slower than anticipated.
Thank you, Senator. We have another question from Senator Buck.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. How would the addition of this Public Works Compliance Team improve the efficiencies and effectiveness of the office in regulating public works projects and compliance?
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. So we, even with the volume that we handle on the regular wage claims, we aim to close 90% of those in 90 days. We hit 84.5% last year, so that's great. Public Works is always going to be a little bit different because the first line of investigation is the public body that owns the project. But if you're looking at the difference between what we can do in 90 days on a wage claim versus what we can do in 90 days on a Public Works claim, our Public Works resolution for FY 24 was in the 60%. So I think speeding it up, sort of formalizing the way that we do in the wage claims, certain parts of it. Look, the audit is always going to take a long time because it's record heavy, but I think some of the procedural parts could be much tighter if we had those positions in place.
Thank you, Senator Buck. And then we do have a question from Chair Anderson.
Thank you. So I'm going to move into the apprenticeship area. So I know that there's some current challenges. It's great news about how many more people are participating in it. How would the addition of 1 new administrative assistant improve the efficiencies and also in managing and implementing the apprenticeship programs?
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Our state apprenticeship director, she does a lot of outreach, but because she has these administrative tasks to do as well, she could be doing a lot more. She could also spend more of her time directly working with the programs that we already have registered in order to add more occupations or do more outreach to their communities to get more apprentices into the programs. So it's really about freeing up her time to get more into the spaces where we can grow the programs and grow new programs.
Thank you. And then I've got a follow-up actually that's not necessarily about the administrative, but it has more to do with the presentation you gave us in, I want to say it was in January. And it had to do with the possibility of deregulation. First of all, is there a forthcoming bill to try to fix the NRS information that I believe you presented to us? And then second, what would that impact have on where we're going?
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Yes, so I did talk in January, and it's also on slide 21, about the threat of derecognition by the United States Department of Labor. And just to give everyone, excuse me, a summary of what that is, so the federal government changed their regulations and their federal code in 2008. That change meant that state apprenticeship agencies that were recognized as such could no longer have their regulatory power given to councils or advisory boards. That the Nevada State Apprenticeship Council still is the regulator for apprenticeship programs. So they are the ones with the final say to say yes or no to registering a program. The U.S. Department of Labor requires that power to be with the administrator of the agency that is designated as the state apprenticeship agency. So we've had several conversations with them, and they've sent correspondence summarizing. We have put that together. The majority leader asked questions about that in that hearing in January. So we've put together a memo with the documentation from the USDOL, sent that, or preparing to send that over to her, or that has been sent over to her. We also have language from before I was here in a bill draft, which I also have sent over to her. And I'm happy to forward that along to you if you would like.
Thank you. So it sounds like the agency is not the one, the department is not the one that's looking for the BDR. They're looking for a member of the legislature to bring it forward.
Brett Harris, Nevada Labor Commissioner, for the record. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Director Harris. That information, if you would you mind getting it to the committee secretary, and then all of us can have that as well. Any other questions for Ms. Harris from the committee? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work as a Labor Commissioner. Okay, Division of Financial Institutions, you are up. Budget account 1013835. Thank you for coming forward, and you begin when you are ready.
Good morning, chairs and committee members. I'm Sandy O'Loughlin, Commissioner for the Financial Institutions Division, and with me is Deputy Commissioner Mary Young. Together, we're going to present our budget.
Get a little closer to the mic. No, don't eat it. Okay, thank you.
The FID is a self-funded agency. We license and regulate depositories, non-depositories, and financial institutions, fiduciary financial institutions, excuse me, within 3 titles and 27 chapters. Our main functions are to regulate by examination for compliance with applicable state laws and regulations of safety and soundness of our state-chartered banks, credit unions, and trust companies. The FID also investigates applicants for licensure, consumer complaints, and enforcements. Our challenges of our division are staffing and include cybersecurity, incidents, cryptocurrency, which is why the division is seeking an IT professional and an additional deputy commissioner. Even with limited resources, my staff understands the importance of our mission statement, and works timelessly to accomplish our goals. We're going to move into the enhancements.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for the Financial Institutions Division. Our enhancements E225 is to fund 1 new IT professional position to create a new IT examination program for the division.
Sandy O'Loughlin, for the record. The IT professional is an examiner. We don't have There isn't a position available in the state right now that has IT and an examiner together. So really, it's an examiner that focuses on IT, and that's how we have to put it together. The workload would be to initially set up an IT exam and complete the preliminary assessment and the preliminary assessment of the industry, and then start to conduct IT exams. The state doesn't have the position, so this is how we're going to get it started.
Okay, the next enhancement is E226.
Please give us your name for the record.
Sorry, apologize.
That's okay.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for FID.
Thank you.
The next enhancement is E226, and we're asking for additional funds for an increase in training, registrations, and associated travel for our staff to be able to attend, associated training classes. And then our next one is E228, which we're asking for funding of a cryptocurrency and blockchain software for examination and investigation purposes.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. Crypto in the division knows parts of it. We know the credits, the transactions, whether they are holding the assets or whether they're transferring between individuals to buy and sell, or if they are buying and selling their own inventory. The division is limited on its resources to regulate this, and why we are asking for chain analysis.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for the Financial Institutions Division. Our next enhancement request is E230, which is to add 3 examiner positions, which we received last session, but they were added during the interim, and they were not approved by the interim Finance Committee. So this is just a request to continue the funding for those positions. The next enhancement is E235, and that's to fund 1 new Deputy Commissioner to have primary oversight of depository and fiduciary institutions and matters relating to cryptocurrency.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. The Deputy Commissioner will have their duties separated by safety and soundness for examinations, cryptocurrency, and the IT professional. The current Deputy Commissioner will be handling compliance examinations, budgetary issues, and the legislature.
Okay, and the next enhancements, E280 and down, we're going to hand that over to James Kirkpatrick.
James Kirkpatrick for the record. Decision Unit E280 is, again, as previously discussed. I apologize for sounding like a broken record. The reduction, the transition from using Allied Security Services to transitioning to Capitol Police. E300 establishes, continues the expenditures in the interim for the second year of the biennium. E710 is a standard equipment replacement that is based on the OCIO equipment replacement schedule. E801, again, as previously discussed, is related to the change in methodology from the prior cost allocation to the new methodology. E903, 303, 503. Did you want to talk about these? Are related to the transfers of the licensing staff from the Department of Business and Industries Director's Office back into financial institution divisions purview.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. That completes the budget for 3835.
All right, thank you very much. We do have a couple of questions here from the committee, and I'm going to start with me. You talked about the needing a new deputy commissioner. Can you share a little bit about what are some of the challenges that you're facing as a division which prompts you to ask for that position?
Sorry, Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. The division has many moving parts. The challenges are are large. We have depository and non-depository and licensing and enforcement. It's a lot for just two people to handle. We've been bringing on more license types. We've had regulations where we've received new chapters, and we're not growing on the administration side. So we really are in need to keep the division to the standard it needs to be at.
Thank you so much, Madam Director. Let me just do a follow-up. I'll give myself permission for a follow-up. So what are the benefits that you anticipate for the division by separating the depository and the non-depository roles?
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. Well, the separation truly is between compliance and safety and soundness. So if we can just focus one deputy commissioner over compliance and safety and soundness, and on the compliance side, we will add the budgetary issues and the legislative issues. And on the depository, the depository side, we will add the IT and cryptocurrency because that's where we're seeing most of that happening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We have a question also now from Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. We appreciate you being here. My question is regarding E225. I was hoping that you would be able to elaborate on the agency's plan to develop and implement the cybersecurity examination and the anticipated benefits of the financial institution industry should the IT professional position be approved.
I'm going to start. Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. The IT professional will be similar to what the mortgage lending division put into place last session. They also did not have an IT examiner, so they hired IT and then they're teaching them the examination portion of it. We are finding we cannot participate in the IT exams as a division because we don't have the IT professional to do it. So we have to rely on federal agencies and or third parties from companies, and we'd like to be able to do that ourselves.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up, if I may. So since the bulk of this workload would be related to establishing that examination, how did the agency determine that there would be enough ongoing work for this position to be a full-time position on an ongoing basis?
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner, FID. Just with the increase of risks that we're seeing in our industry, all of our non-depository and depositories with the cybersecurity risks, and just our IT review, we just need to have someone, like she had stated, so we can do the full IT examination on our own and not rely on other states or other federal regulators to do that part. So our part was to do that, as we saw the increase in our licensees, and we want to be a part of that to make sure Nevada is always a part of that examination.
Thank you. And I think I still didn't get to hear the answer of just like why this position would need to be ongoing instead of just like a one-time appropriation.
My apologies. We have approximately 1,900 licensees. So there's plenty to keep this individual busy, and eventually we hope to maybe obtain additional IT examiners in the future, or for them to also train our current examiners. So yes, it will be an ongoing thing. They'll be busy with all the 1,900 licensees that we have to incorporate this examination, IT examination in.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Assemblymember Watts.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question about the new cryptocurrency software in E228. Can you just discuss some of the issues and challenges that your agency is encountering? Obviously, new area, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of potential, I think, for issues. So can you just briefly give us an understanding of some of the issues that are going on with your office in terms of monitoring and regulating cryptocurrency and other kind of virtual assets?
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. Yes. It would be fair to say we don't know what we don't know. We do know about credits. We do know that there is crypto activity happening. We do know that it's coming from our money transmitters and our fintechs. We do know that it comes with very high dollars. We do know we need to get in there. And this hopefully will help us. We don't have the knowledge. We need to obtain the knowledge.
Thank you. And I definitely agree that we need to know what's going on. And there's probably going to be some areas where the office will need to step in. So could you just talk about what, are you aware of kind of more high risk cryptocurrency transactions that could trigger possible involvement from the Attorney General's office or other law enforcement agencies?
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. We use the Metro Financial Crimes Division when necessary. That's nothing new to us. There's fraud, there's theft, and if it can truly be identified, we will forward that on to the AG's office, and we have before.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we appreciate it so much.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record, we have one more budget account.
I'm sorry.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record, we have one more budget account.
Oh, you're the next one too. Okay.
I'm happy to walk away.
Nope. We'll just welcome you back. Let's go right ahead. And this is our last one, so let's soldier on.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for FID. The decision unit for this budget account 3805 is E550, which is to fund a new investigation, licensing, consumer complaint, and examination data system.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record. We currently use Versa, which is antiquated. That's the best word I can use for it. It's antiquated. It was sunsetted long ago. Currently, we merge reports. We rewrite information just to give us a report that makes sense to provide to others. The new database will remove our duplicative process, as we currently have with our NMLS and Versa now. It comes in on one and we have to totally enter it into another. It will improve the initial licensing and investigations and processing. From our research of the industry, we believe that the tracking, reporting, and investigating, enforcement, and licensing will be much better. And it'll be a full system for both sides of the division.
James Kirkpatrick for the record. E801 is, again, the adjustment for the transition from the old cost allocation method to the new cost allocation method, transferred to the department.
Okay. Thank you for the short presentation. Okay, we do have a couple of questions, so we'll start with Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much. So if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like you had previously requested an allocation to move to the Versa system, and that was not completed. Is that correct? In the 21 to 23 biennium?
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for the FID. I do not recall that request to move to Versa. We've been on Versa since February of 2010, and the division started it back in 2009. So this is the first time that I think myself or the commissioner are aware of us asking for a new database. I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding. I thought that we approved an allocation back in the 81st session in 2021 to do a system upgrade.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner for the Financial Institutions Division. You could be talking about the nationwide multi-state licensing system, and that was specifically for licensing for all states to use, basically. This is to replace our internal system that we use now that has an investigation, compliance, complaint, and examination module in that system. So this system will now talk, the new system that we're looking to get will now integrate with the NMLS system.
Okay, so the NMLS system has already been implemented, for lack of a better term, and now we're marrying the external and internal databases with this request.
Sandy O'Loughlin for the record, yes.
Okay, Thank you. And you, I think you answered this question, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding how this is going to comply with the financial institutions investigations budget account that's outlined in NRS 232.545.
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner of Financial Institutions Division. This database will enhance all of the functions at our division. We anticipate the focus to be more on the investigation side and investigation and consumer complaint and enforcement side with examinations. And then also too, we decided to use this account because there is ample reserves in that account. But that is our reasoning behind the 3805, to use that in the investigations account.
Thank you, Senator. And then we have a question from Assemblymember Backus.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just have one question on this, and you kind of touched on it as you were kind of saying the purpose of utilizing this budget account. It appears that to fully fund future expenditures for both the new system and the other expenditures in this budget account, that the agency would have to continue to draw down reserves or increase fees. And so basically my question is, what are the potential consequences should the reserve level in the financial institutions investigations budget account fall below the targeted reserve level of $1 million?
Mary Young, Deputy Commissioner, FID. Thank you for the question. We do not see there to be an issue in the future. We did budget conservatively for fiscal 26 and 27. But we anticipate we're going to have enough of revenue in that account to fund this new database. If not, yes, we would have to take down reserves, but we would also come back to request to maybe possibly move funding from our main budget account over to this investigation account. That's our current plan.
All right, thank you, Assemblymember. Seeing no further questions? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here, and thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick, for being a part of everyone's presentation. All right, this concludes the hearing for the Department of Business and Industry, and we will go to the last item on our agenda, and that is public comment. So if there's anyone here in Carson City who would like to make public comment, please come forward, or if you're there in Vegas, I don't see anybody, please come forward. All right, seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line who's called in and would like to make public comment? That number again is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID is 817-5127-1144.
Thank you. If you would like to provide public comment today, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. This concludes our meeting. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you for being there. Have a great day.